Kelsey,
Brandon, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you.
I'm glad to be here. I saw the stuff that you did with Jonathan Isaac. Should I say the Reverend Jonathan Isaac? And no, I'm pleased to be on your show.
Yes, the Reverend.
Yes, and you're doing great work yourself. Thank you so much for having me. You're welcome.
I appreciate that. I get to follow in the footsteps of OGs like you. So look, you paved the way. I'm just trying to crawl and make my little space.
I hear you talking.
And let me tell you something. You were probably the hardest guest that I've ever had to get dressed for. Because usually I'm like chill and stuff, but I'm like looking at your pictures and stuff, and I'm like, oh shoot, this man has a style game every single time.
I'm wearing a Nintendo t-shirt on a Saturday. You got me beat.
Too funny. Well, I'm so excited to have you. And before we get things started, I always love asking my guests first, how are you doing? How are you holding up just with all that's going on currently in the world right now?
Honestly, I took a week off this week and just kind of just recharged, because ever since the pandemic has hit, I've just been like, to me, that was motivation to keep going from the door. So like, honestly, I'm rested. I took a week off and I'm here. Yeah.
And you came here. Well, I thank you for joining me. I'm glad you're doing okay. But like you said, I think this is the 1 week. I'm usually high energy, as you can see. I'm always on the go, but but I had to take a little break because just emotionally, I felt drained. I found myself just at random times just emotional. I've cried this week. I've been angry this week. I've been frustrated, but then I've also smiled some. It's just seeing some of the unity that's kind of starting to come together. So I feel like it was a week of many emotions, but we made it. We made it to Saturday.
Mama, we made it. And when I look at just what's going on in the world right now, I think people are hurting. But what I find to be interesting is I think all that's been going on, I think this is the one time that others saw where we were coming from more universally than others, than other times, rather. And I think that while we seek to be acknowledged, some and some validated, we can't lose sight of what we're really what the grind is, what the fight is, what the focus is. And I think that one of the things that I find interesting, particularly in this case, George Floyd, is I think many people are paying attention more because the pandemic is going on, which forces people to pay attention to what's going on, versus in other times people kind of gloss over it. So I think the fight that we fight is a fight that's worth fighting, but at the same time, I think we tired.
We are. I literally have said this line on every show I've been on this week: sick and tired of being sick and tired. Sure. I think the conversation that me and you're going to have today is important because we both come from different backgrounds. We grew up in different places, but something we have in color is all this wonderful melanin that's on our skin.
I've heard something like that.
And it's great. I mean, you come from the Black male perspective. I come from the Black female perspective. And again, even though we have that in common, we have just very different stories. But I'm glad the attention is there. My only hate, I'll be real with you, Brandon, I hate it takes something so tragic and so drastic every time in history, not even just now, it seems like, for us to come together. But the biggest thing coming out of this, we need this to continue. I'll be honest, I've had white coworkers check in on me more this week than I've ever had before. White friends. Yes. But keep this up. Like, we need this energy. And I think for once they see what it feels like to be us, even though they'll never fully know. Like, I'll never know what it is to be a white woman. I just won't. But at the same time, we want you just to understand, because this has been going on. Systematic racism has been a part of this country even before me and you were born. It's what this country, unfortunately, was built on. We know the history of slavery and things. And you see what's happening in D.C. It was a beautiful thing, let me tell you, to wake up and see that Black Lives Matter there. Because D.C., as you know, was once Chocolate City. We're still here, but it's important. It's important. So I appreciate you bringing the attention that you do through your show and through your work to these issues. And let's just kick it off. So tell me, I mean, there's so many things going on. We can start. We have Drew Brees' comments. We have President Trump's comments. You know, we have NFL players coming up and speaking out. Then we look back at Colin Kaepernick when it was, hey, since 2016, man hasn't been playing. So just with all that's going on, what do you think is kind of the biggest storyline? What are you taking from sports? What role has sports played in the current climate that we're living in?
Well, the one thing I could say about sports is sports has always served as that distraction from what was going on in the world. And what you're finding now with sports is you're finding that Bill Russell, Ali, Jim Brown, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar activist role that's being played. And I think that when you look at the National Basketball Association, for example, I think that they've always been on the forefront of guys speaking up. Like, I always use the analogy, like like basketball players are like rappers in comparison to football players because when you look at basketball, they don't wear masks or they don't wear helmets.
Right, football, you see their face.
Football, you may know OBJ, you may know Eli Manning, you may know Drew Brees. But when you look at situations with basketball, you know that the usual suspects are going to speak up: LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Carmelo Anthony, and more. And the NFL, in a lot of respects, has had issues when it relates to, I guess, the race wars or relates race relations. And so, you know, I think when Colin Kaepernick was bringing attention to police brutality, it was always about the flag, right? Okay, so now you got Drew Brees who's like making comments about the flag, and it's like, well, wait, he kind of did Colin Kaepernick a favor, if you will, because it put back into the forefront that it was about police brutality, and now certain people are saying, "Oh, I get it." So here, if I'm a doctor, here's the prescription. Yeah. The NFL owes Colin Kaepernick some money.
For sure.
And if I'm Colin Kaepernick, here's what I do. I don't take a job as a quarterback because we passed that. I want a job where I can work from home, and all I got to do is show up. Yeah. And I'm in a situation where it's a job where I'm the liaison for race relations with the NFL. If that's what they want, and it's not for posterity's sake, if you will. My family would joke and say posterior's sake. It's not for posterity's sake. It's legitimately for a situation where you're educating people on it. Because here's the thing: the NBA is going to always excel, but how are you going to have that face that talks about it? It's interesting. I got a call from my editor a couple of days ago at Heavy, and he was talking about how, you know, Saquon Barkley had tweeted a photo or the video with the NFL players with the raising a fist, and I said to him, he was like, "So how do you dissect that?" And I was like, "Just because there's a fist, it doesn't mean that they're being militant, but it is drawing attention. Every fist you tweet is an emoji doesn't mean black power, but it does draw attention because people are like, well, what is this black man or black woman talking about?" So I think where we are right now, I think we're still in the gathering stage, but I don't want this to be, okay, it happened 2 weeks ago, and then it's business as usual. And it's kind of like the 9/11 effect. After things happened, people went back to being normal. And I wonder if that's going to be the case.
And I sincerely hope not. I think we're in a state where we cannot forget this moment in history. Look, I'm 27 years old. In my entire lifetime, I have not seen anything to this extent. And it's happened, of course, before in history. But just, wow. I mean, you see people in Finland and Israel and everyone. Black lives matter. They've always mattered to us. But now I think the rest of the world is truly seeing what we have to go through on an everyday basis. I mean, we have to raise our kids. We're sometimes scared that they won't come home. And, of course, I'm not a mom, but I can't. It's a horrible feeling. It's a horrible feeling. And you see what's happening. And I want to bring on another comment that was made from one of our loyal listeners. Shout out to Zach Rogers, somebody from high school tuning into the show, and he covers the WNBA. But also, that's a great fact. The WNBA has also been a league that has been trying to bring, and really not trying, but they've done it. They've brought attention to this issue, but because we know there's a lack of women's sports coverage, they don't get that. Natasha Clout, though, right here for the Washington Mystics, if you saw her Players Tribune piece, you know, your silence is a knee on my neck. How powerful that was. And she's been one that's constantly spoken out. I know her personally from covering the Mystics, spoken on panels with her at the University of Maryland. So powerful. I think now, too, athletes are really realizing their power. I think before, some were scared to speak up because they saw what happened to Colin Kaepernick and others before him. But now I think they're saying, look, I need to use my voice. Something is wrong. That powerful video that came out from the NFL players all together. You talked about Saquon Barkley. We saw Patrick Mahomes and just so many others in this video. I thought that was just so powerful to see. And then, of course, we see Roger Goodell now coming out with an apology. So first, let me get your thoughts. When you saw that video, what did that mean to you personally, both as a black man and as a journalist?
Is it bad if I say nothing? Because I feel like at the end of the day, it's a business. Yeah. I'm thankful that you see companies speak out about what's going on in the world, particularly as it relates to African Americans. But let's be clear. I feel like Obama. Let's be clear.
That was a good impersonation.
I think I'll stick to my day job. But I think when you look at companies speak up about different things, well, what do you expect them to do? When you look at African Americans, we have buying power. You know, like when you look at entertainment, when you look at shoes, I don't know if you own a pair of Louboutins, but you know, you're a black woman. A lot of black women like Louboutins. I like Air Jordans.
Not yet. I'm working my way up there.
All right. So let's just stick it to Air Jordans and Nikes at large. Like, we like those things.
All right.
So like, I think it's in those companies' best professional interest to, you know, discuss it. But it took a video of that sort. I don't think we've ever seen companies cater in that way, despite the fact that we always been spending. Personally, I like dairy-free Ben and Jerry's, but you know, I know that they put out a heartfelt, you know,
powerful statement.
I'm a brand ambassador with Zenni Optical. Zenni Optical is affordable glasses. I'm wearing them now. Shameless plug there, but you know, at the end of the day, like, they have a responsibility to speak. However, it's still a business. How would you're gonna want those people to come back and shop with you again, right? So Black folk watch the NFL as much as we watch the NBA, as much as we watch many other sports. So I kind of think, like, for Roger Goodell to speak, you know, to it, he's doing his job. Yeah, I mean, it's a political. I'm sorry, but it's politically right. At the end of the day, it's about money. It's kind of a trend, and it's unfortunate. But at the same time, why has this not happened before? Why are we just now seeing statements? Why did it take Blackout Tuesday in 2020 for us to see this? My thing too, Brandon, is it shouldn't only be writing these statements, but making sure you're living these practices and policies. I'm sure, like me, you've been the only Black person in a room. I'm used to it. I'm used to it. And it's funny because I'll give an example. At my previous job, I had a coworker ask me one time, we did an event for CBC, the Congressional Black Caucus. So of course, all the Black people come together from politics. It's a great time. It's fun. And she had the nerve to ask me, well, am I going to be comfortable? I said, what do you mean, are you going to be comfortable? She said, because I'm going to be the only one. How many times have you been the only one in the room? And has anybody asked you, do you feel comfortable? I've never been asked that. I was one of 4 African Americans in my graduating class in prep school. Don Bosco Prep, and you know, there was a Black table, and I made it a point to not only sit at the Black table, but sit with the white guys, sit with the Asian guys. Being cool with the Asian guys, I made sure I had Super Mario Brothers on my TI-83 calculator. Sitting with some of the Hispanic guys, some of those guys I learned about the sport of high school wrestling. You know, you at different times in life, you at different tables, but I think the foundation, you know, was set. Like, so there were certain, you know, Black questions, like, why do Black guys get their hair cut all the time? Like, you guys don't have hair, or like, you know, like things of that sort of are things that I was used to answering. So I had no problem in doing so, but I think being the only guy, to me, gives me the opportunity to infuse culture, to infuse, like, having a voice. Because many African Americans are not comfortable speaking out about things of that sort, or taking a leadership role in that regard. So I think it's imperative that, you know, if you are the only person in that room, you relish in it. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point, because look, when you are there, you're a representative. And I'll just give an example. Super Bowl just was down there, Radio Row. Not too many Black women doing sports talk radio. And I knew there was a standard. And best believe a lot of people knew me because I was kind of easy to point out, being that one of the few. And I think, like you said, I've been in that position where, like you, going to predominantly white schools and I always talk to everyone. I mean, I've made it a point, and luckily the community where I came from was pretty diverse. But like you said, it's sharing that culture, sharing that knowledge, answering those questions so that when they come into contact with others like us, they understand more. There's certain cultural things that me and you get. Like, you probably already know how long it took me to straighten my hair this morning. You know what Black women go through. For sure. I have three sisters, so I get it. So you get it, right? Yeah, and I think you know, it's important to also reach out to the generation that's behind you. Because I think you don't have to be a celebrity or somebody famous or, like, you know, notable to I use this analogy or this saying all the time, you know, the higher you go up, it's your on the elevator, it's your responsibility to send it back down. So I think as much as, you know, it's about me, or us, you got to educate the next generation, because somebody did it for you. It's true. And that next generation, they're the future. It's so true. They're looking and learning from us. This is why the actions that we take now are so important. So important, because when me and you are both old and gray, we're hoping we're not still fighting this
same battle. It's been going on for too long. And again, I appreciate everyone that's looking to learn. Look, I just did on my podcast earlier this week, I just had a conversation with Sean Fox down in New Orleans. He's a sports director. He said, Kelsey, I'll be honest, when the Colin Kaepernick thing first happened, he said, I was all for the flag. I was like Drew Brees. He said, after this week, I get it. I was wrong. It's not just about the flag. And we had that open and honest conversation. This is a white male. This is me as a black female. And we were able to talk about it. And I think that's why Drew Brees' comments were so important, really, because there's too many that keep talking about the flag, the flag, the flag. It is not about the flag. We are hurting. We as a people have been hurting for too long. Unfortunately, George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and so many others, they're not the first. And unfortunately, they probably won't to be the last. We're trying to bring attention to this because for far too long, we've had this distant relationship with police when they're supposed to protect and serve. I mean, if you watch that video, Brandon, and no emotions happened to you or you didn't feel away, I would honestly question if you're human. I mean, that was so hurtful to watch.
Yeah, and I think that's why this situation is a lot different, if you will. You look at what happened with Eric Garner in Staten Island, New York, and you look at there was a tussle and a struggle with the police. And I think I'm cool with his daughter, so I'm choosing my words carefully, but I'm being honest at the same time. Yeah. You look at the difference, and there was a struggle there, right? So in the eyes of others, they may say, well, he resisted arrest, he did this, he did that. Yeah. The difference between that situation and the situation with George Floyd was the video started at him on the ground with the cop with his foot or his knee on Floyd's neck, and he was chilling with his hands in his pocket. Yeah. So universally, he wasn't resisting arrest. Right. If he was, we didn't see that point. All we saw was that. Right. You couldn't dispute it. And as younger kids would say, if you do, you a hater. At the end of the day, it's true what you saw. So you can't deny that. Right. It was in your face. And I think this is the culture that we're in now. We're seeing these videos. I mean, think about just the power of videos. I'll go back to the civil rights movement. It took television cameras, putting the camera on peaceful marchers who were getting bitten by dogs and hosed down for someone to say, OMG, this is a problem, right? And that's just one example. So many instances when we see the video, seeing is believing. It was not edited. You saw it. You see what happened to the young girl that had to shoot this video. And you just think if the video wasn't there, what would have happened? Would we be here now? Because it would have been, unfortunately, George Floyd's word, who obviously couldn't speak for himself, versus this cop's word. We're still talking about COVID right now.
Yeah, it's true. COVID would have still been the big thing. And now COVID's a bad thing. We're like, okay, COVID's going on, but hey, I have to march. I'm sure where you are, there's been protests. Where I am in DC, they're talking about the largest march after. Matter of fact, after I finish with you, I might have to go down there. I mean, it's huge. And it's great to see so many joining it. It's not just Black people saying Black Lives Matter. It's a unity thing now, I think, that it's become. And I think the role that sports has played in it now, too, is that we're seeing some of the top. I don't think I've seen probably 70% of athletes, maybe more, maybe 80% of athletes now have put their opinion out, right? And talked on this issue or matter. I think this is more than I've ever seen, Brandon. I think that shows significance. To
quote the great Dana Owens, a.k.a. Queen Latifah, U-N-I-T-Y, you got to let them know. Yes. People letting them know. So I think it's a good thing right now.
It's huge. And then you see somebody like Steven Jackson, who's just been on the forefront. I think you tweeted out an interview you did back with, was it 1990?
1999.
1999. Wow. Okay, we're going to talk about Steven Jackson. I want you to talk about Steven Jackson then during that interview and what you see with Steven Jackson now being this outspoken, pretty much activist on this current matter and issue.
Yeah, so so my journey began with the Nets at 12. I had a radio show with the Nets called Net Slamming Planet when they were in New Jersey. And, the first person I ever interviewed was Keith Van Horn when he was a rookie from Utah. Yeah. And that was actually during the 1997-98 season, the Last Dance Bulls season. So I was around that Bulls team as well. Wow. But what I can say is, specifically to, Steven Jackson, he was a Net in 99. In 2000, I think too. He signed with the Nets. Guy from Port Arthur, Texas. So when I think of Port Arthur, Texas, I think of like hip hop. I think of Slim Thug, all those guys. So we sat down, and the thing that I marveled at was his relationship with the Bibby family. Mike Bibby Sr.
Yeah.
Just how happy he was to be on that team. Byron Scott was the head coach of that Nets team at the time. He was teammates with Stephon Marbury, Keith Van Horn, Kenyon Martin, just a myriad of other characters that are still fixtures in the NBA today. And one of the things that I liked about him was just his humility. You know, he was in a situation in New Jersey with the Nets where he was with that team because Keith Van Horn had gotten hurt that year. And he got some shine. That was technically his rookie year. And I remember him playing in the rookie sophomore game during All-Star Weekend in 2000. So it just was a good time for him at the time to be a Net. And so basically, to see the work he's done now, I think it's at an interesting point in his life because I think a lot of people hold him to the brawl in the palace back when he was a Pacer. And, you know, I think, you know, him shooting guns or just some of the things he's done in the past, you know, what happens when you're young? You do silly things when you're young, but at the same time, I think, you know, the show that he does with Matt Barnes, it sheds light on the relationships that he has and the other side of what he's done. But I think, you know, the one thing about the George Floyd death, I think that we all can relate to is people can't treat you like everybody else when you're connected.
That's powerful.
And I think because Steven Jackson had a relationship with George Floyd, and because Steven Jackson is connected to so many players past and present, he ain't gonna let people forget who he is.
Nope.
And I think that's a good thing. And so I think him taking the lead on it the way he is great. And I think it introduces kids that are younger than us to who Steven Jackson is from start to finish. And I like it. I think one thing that people do forget is that Steven Jackson went to Oak Hill Academy, and I had begun learning about Oak Hill when I was around him. And I was like, wait, is that a college? Is that a university? And then, you know, some people that I know, like many people don't know that Rod Strickland, NBA legend, Kyrie Irving's godfather, went to Oak Hill. He could have went to DeWitt Clinton in the Bronx. He ended up going to Oak Hill. Jerry Stackhouse went to Oak Hill.
So many greats.
So, you know, Brandon Jennings. So, you know, just kind of from the beginning, you're looking back and seeing all of those, you know, those connectors with Steven Jackson. It's not just the Brawl in the Palace, Oak Hill. He won a championship with the Spurs back in 2003 and, you know, was respected by guys like Greg Popovich, still head coach of Spurs. Played with David Robinson, played with Tim Duncan. I think he's had a diverse group of NBA peers he's played with. And, you know, here we are now, years later.
Yeah, and just talking about Steven Jackson, I'm curious, any other players that have stood out to you during this time that have just been outspoken on this issue?
Well, I'm pleased with the fact that despite his mother's death, Karl Anthony Towns found his way to Minnesota. I have been in touch with the Towns family throughout the whole pandemic. I've covered them. We have mutual friends in common. And I'm glad him being a member of the Minnesota Timberwolves, he thought it not robbery to, fly out to Minnesota and support, along with, Jamie Foxx and others. So, Towns, I think, has been, a silent supporter, or at least a quiet supporter, despite the death of his mom, Jacqueline Cruz Towns. And, I think you poll NBA players and, throughout the course of this texting, phone calls and more, they're all upset, whether they're black or white. But, I think Towns is somebody that I'm pleased that he's been active, and I think that's a great thing.
And let me ask you, Brandon, those athletes or players right now who want to say something but haven't said something yet, do you think it's too late for them?
No, because I think everybody may not be comfortable speaking like that. Mm-hmm. And I think that with the NBA season resuming next month, I think in a lot of respects, the NBA resuming is like the Olympics replacement. It's the Nicorette Dome, if you will. Yeah. I think that, so you're going to have like July through September, October, where guys speaking out. Yeah. So I think if they didn't speak out now, like it's 22 teams that are going to be on the Disney Resort and at the Disney's Wild World of Sports that will have the opportunity and the platform to do so.
And when we say speak out, let's just be clear on that, because I think there's some people now who think, like, what do I do? Is it a tweet? Is it me attending a protest or rally? Is it me sending a statement? Can you just clarify? What do you mean by speak out? I mean, what
however which way you decide to do that. Michael Jordan and the Jordan brand released a statement and talked about donating money. So
100 million.
If you're able to donate money, cool. But I also don't think that you always have to make your presence known.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm cool with Shaq. I'm cool with Shaq's mom. And I remember I remember his mom, Lucille O'Neal, being on the Scoopy Radio podcast. She's been on multiple times. But one of the things I said is, why don't you make your contributions to various organizations more known? She said, because we know what we came from, and there's things we do seen and unseen, that everything doesn't have to be acknowledged. And I felt that, but I'll add, the O'Neals are not the only family that's like that. Believe it or not. Kobe Bryant was very philanthropic privately, even during his career.
Wow.
So I think a lot of times, in the same vein, like a lot of people of color were looking for every company to make a statement. Comparatively, just because every athlete doesn't make a statement, that doesn't make them less real.
Right. Or doesn't mean they're speaking out.
Their level of comfortability.
Right.
And just because somebody's speaking out don't mean that there's not an agenda too. So you got to look at it from both ways.
Right. Right. No, that's true. I think sometimes when we can take silence as they're not doing anything, but you're right. You need to look into the issue. You need to look into the matter. And again, I appreciate you speaking on that and sharing those very personal stories. And talking about speaking out, these apologies we're hearing from Drew Brees, Roger Goodell. I mean, what are you taking for that? Is there ever a time where it's too late to speak out? And I mean that by saying, are these apologies, are they too late, too little? Are you taking them for what they are?
I mean, if for example, if you're a Christian, the Bible calls you to forgive.
True.
But I think if you forgive, you also have to look at actions behind that level of. You have to look at actions after the person apologizes.
Yeah, actions speak louder than words.
So I'm not here to say whether or not they're right or wrong, or rather their apologies were false. I have to look at their actions after that apology.
Yeah. That's what we're looking at. It's true. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on that because, there's mixed opinions. I think, take Drew Brees' apology for what it is. But also, on the other end of that, you can't expect people to accept apology. Because you've ever apologized for something does not mean the person on the other end has to forgive you. And I think that's another thing that people are forgetting.
Yeah, and I also think that once the NFL season starts and if the Saints win, I think winning gives people amnesia. Winning cures all.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at situations with like the Patriots years ago with Deflategate. Tom Brady continued to win.
Yeah.
And,
now kind of forgotten.
He's in Tampa Bay now. If he's able to win there, it carries on. So
yeah,
I think once the season starts, and if I think not to say people will forget, but I think just as the progression of time happens, I think there will be other topics that people will discuss.
And would you say this hurts Drew Brees' legacy? We're looking at retirement. No, same.
I don't think so. Me personally, I don't think so because I think you've never seen him in the news for anything controversial.
True. I mean, he's kind of that golden boy, let's be honest, right, of the NFL. Like, you think of Drew Brees. I mean, there's some that have never said anything negative about Drew until this very moment in time in history. So, but I do think I look at it differently because I think now when he retires, I don't think it's going to be the same. This is me personally. I think there's going to be this little black cloud. Of course, he's done great things on the football field, but I do think we'll still be thinking of this moment in
I can see it, but I think when you talk about legacy, I think people are obsessed with that phrase.
Yeah.
Because I think, like, for example, right? So you look in January when Kobe Bryant passed away. Mm-hmm. And then the whole Gayle King interview happened.
Yeah.
In my opinion, the fact that Kobe passed away with his daughter makes him untouchable. Versus, and when you talk about the Hall of Fame, versus if Kobe hypothetically were still alive, people would naturally bring up his legal case years ago because of what that legal case represented, how Kobe put his arms around women's basketball, and the fact that his daughter, who he was working with, and with training and everything else, the way that the death happened, we can't touch that.
Right.
And because Gayle King was the first to touch it, we know now, don't put your finger on that fence.
Right. And she got the brunt of it. I mean, we saw like she literally got attacked. And this is the social media culture, I think, though, now, when popular opinion sways against you, that's what happens. I think you're right. I think Kobe's legacy is definitely different now. And of course, now, I mean, we're still sad. Think about it. I mean, many people are pointing Kobe and Gigi's unfortunate death to like kind of the course that changed 2020, because it seems like, unfortunately, after that, 2020 just kept punching us. Like, it's been crazy. I mean, COVID-19 came, civil unrest came, and just so much. Like, I think this is truly a moment in history that none of us will soon ever forget. Like, we'll all remember 2020 for different and various reasons. Some of us have lost people due to COVID and just so many greats taken from us. But I think that was a very important point. And again, I appreciate you talking on this. And now I know this is a sports show, but I think it's important for me and you to break down Black Lives Matter. I'm so tired of the banter, Brandon, of this all lives matter. Sure. And what about my life too? All right, so I'm gonna let you go first. Black Lives Matter, what does it mean to you?
I mean, I think for me as an African-American male who was feared, I realized the importance of, the people who came before me, that allows me to sit in this seat to talk to you now at this current moment. I think when you talk about Black Lives Matter, I think that goes back to why we celebrate Black History Month every February. I think it goes back to, the fact that, our parents educated us on, who created the traffic light, who created peanut butter, who created, some of the other things that we
shoot. Yeah.
Right. So I think celebrating Black culture shouldn't just be a hashtag. It shouldn't just be a month. And I think oftentimes you have the people who cynically say, well, white lives matter too. And so I think that's where you dovetail into all lives matter. But that's like, shooting somebody and then pouring peroxide on it to say, to make it all better, or think you're making it all better by saying all lives matter. You still have to focus on the fact that, somebody's hemorrhaging from the bullet wound.
Yes.
And I think that's the same conversation. You're in DC, why is it that, there's BET, but there's no white entertainment television? It's trivial. I think we always gloss over the fact that, we matter. And, I think oftentimes people act, I think for years, you look at America at large, we're living on stolen land. I'll add this. I feel like this moment when George Floyd was murdered, we now are getting our flowers in the same breath that retroactively in the same vein that many of our Native American brothers and sisters are. And I think if anybody understands that, they do. But I feel like in today's society, like Thanksgiving, Independence Day, like I understand it as just enjoying family and friends, not so much celebrating Independence Day or Thanksgiving because of how Native Americans and other people were affected by it. I still, as an American, I'm thankful to live in this country and have the freedoms that I do. But there are still some things that we have not sat down and acknowledged that they are the reasons why they are. So, to go back to your initial question about Black Lives Matter, I know what it means to me, but to just say that all lives matter is to ignore the fact that, African Americans have not been affected in ways that they've been affected.
That last part really hit me hard, because that's exactly what it is. We're not saying anything bad about anybody else, but our lives have not been looked at the same. We know the history of this country, and we're talking about the names we know. We're talking about the George Floyds and the Breonna Taylors. There's so many that we don't know, unfortunately. There's so many where that camera was not there to record their last moments or their last breaths. But the hashtag is important. I'm glad it's going on, but it has to be more than a hashtag. My life has to matter. Your life has to matter. Every Black life needs to matter to every single person. Like you said, it's not us going against, I'm glad to live in America. I've traveled the world. I'm sure you have too.
Sure.
I wouldn't rather live in any other place. I mean, I'm truly happy to be here, but it's kind of like a family, right? Every family, you love your family, but every family has its problems. And guess what you do? You work to fix those problems, and that's what we're doing. And also understand, this country has had a long problem with talking about race.
Yeah.
All right? Anybody, a lot of people have a problem talking about race, but it needs to be talked about. You have to have those difficult conversations. This is why I wanted you on the show, because I knew you were somebody that wasn't afraid to talk about these issues. I know you could handle it, and it needs to be talked about.
For sure.
It needs to be talked about more than just now when this is happening. It needs to be talked about, and hopefully until racism is over. Hopefully that conversation will keep happening. But I think we do live in a place where everyone needs to point the finger at themselves. What can I do to make the world a better place? What can I do to end racism? And I think it starts in your local community. And you talked about it through history. I mean, I think making sure Black history is taught in schools, not just in February. It's part of American history. So there's so much more that we need to get into. But I appreciate you just talking on that. And of course, we are going to talk sports, but anything else you want to just leave on this whole conversation on just what's going on in the civil unrest?
No, in the words of Jesse Jackson, keep hope alive.
I love it. I love it. All right, Brandon, we're going to transfer over to basketball July 31st, about 2 weeks after my birthday. Just putting it out there, so people remember it well. The NBA is coming back. We got 22 teams. I am excited. So first, when you heard the news, what were your initial emotions and thoughts?
Well, I mean, this was a conversation that the league office had been having, even off the clock before. It was just a matter of dates and times and just, what teams were going to represent and how, whether you were going to keep it the traditional, 16, team. So, I mean, I think for sports or having something to look forward to, I think any sports fan was looking to do that. Or to have some semblance of basketball being played. I do think that this is a great experiment as it relates to competing with the NFL for ratings.
True,
but also I think it's great because the NBA has toyed or has at least discussed ways to either shorten games or shorten seasons, or try something different where it's not traditionally, you start training camp in September, you start the season either the 15th of October, and even before they started that, Halloween weekend or Halloween week was when it started. So I think this gives you a case study on, doing something different. The only difference is you don't have fans, you don't have.
We might have crowd noise.
I think that's cheesy. What about you? You think that's cheesy? I would.
It is cheesy. It's not the same.
Yeah, we're here on that. I think it's cheesy.
But it's exciting. NBA coming back, and of course, we're all talking about it. I want to get your thoughts on this. Do you think this year's champion, will we look at them the same?
I think they're going to be cynics and skeptics there, but I think. One of the things that I've discussed with certain retired vets that have come on the Scoopy Radio podcast, I had Kenny Anderson and Kendall Gill on, and I discussed the lockout during the 98-99 season, and that was the season after Michael hit that shot against the Jazz, and they were locked out, and I said, do you see any similarities between then and now? And they said one of the things they see is diet and lack of having a gym in their home. Like certain players have gyms, but you have more of the marquee guys like LeBron or Dwayne Wade's not playing, but certain moneymaker guys that have gyms in their home.
They'll have a nice house in the gym. Yeah.
Most guys, they have an apartment or townhouse or what have you near the facility, but when you can't report to the facility, what do you do? So I think when you look at that season, the 98-99 season, I think of the Spurs. Many people talked about how they wanted to put an asterisk next to their championship. But here's the thing. The Spurs won again in 2003. They won again in 2005. They won again, I think, in 2007. They won again in 2014.
Right.
So it's like, okay, they won during the lockout short season, but they came back and they continue to win.
Right.
So let's say the Lakers make it back to the finals, right? Or the Clippers. Those were two teams that many people thought it was still going to go through LA.
Right.
They got to come back next season and do the same thing. I spoke to a Hall of Famer who believes that, if the Nets come back healthy next season and, hypothetically, if the Warriors find a way to nab Giannis Antetokounmpo in free agency this coming, I would say summer, but this coming October, those two teams, the Nets and the Warriors, would be the consensus preseason favorite to make it to the finals. So then people will then look back at the Lakers and say, well, are they the paper champion or are they the real champion? So I think at the end of the day, when you look at, the finals and you look at it like this, say this rest gives the Toronto Raptors time to rest and they win. Yeah. So are they a fluke? Because they won last year. Yeah. And they did it with Kawhi.
Yep.
So I think there's a lot of things to consider. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things to consider there.
It's going to be different. Well, I'm excited the NBA is coming back. We have so much to count down to. Brandon, I have to thank you so much. This has been good. We're going to have to do a part 2, Brandon.
We do. I'm here.
I love it. And before I let you go, I think your story is magnificent, and I think every young journalist needs to hear it. So just talk about your journey into journalism and just how you've grown within this industry as a Black male.
Well, I think more than anything else, I think, coming from a family that were entrepreneurs has aided me. I think that particularly in today's day and age where it's about brands and being independent, Scoopy Radio legitimately started from a Timberland box. How New York does that sound? Literally had tapes from when I was a kid interviewing Dikembe Mutombo, B.J. Armstrong, and more. And we digitized those tapes, and we had them on the podcast. Literally, Scoopy Radio was supposed to just be a time capsule, and what ended up happening was when I left CBS Radio back in 2016, I legitimately just was producing my life's work, and then I got new guests and things of that sort. So. My family, I come from a family of sneaker store owners, and, that Timberland box to me was symbolic of my past. And, Scoopy Radio, digitizing those tapes and making those things happen is, legitimately just continuing to produce good work and using the internet to push, my product.
I love it. And let me ask you something. So I don't know if you saw my interview with Jasmine Jordan, but I admitted I had never owned a pair of Jordans. And quite admittedly, Brandon, I am as far from a sneaker chick or sneakerhead or whatever as you can get. So I'm going to ask your opinion because you know this well. What's a good sneaker for someone like me that wants to look cool for the young kids, but still my age, but doesn't know enough about the whole sneaker culture?
What did Jasmine say?
She told me the ones. She told me to get the ones.
The funny thing is, I was going to say that, but if you want to be different, she's gonna go Jordan all day, every day. I don't blame her.
Yeah.
But if you want to do something that's not Jordan ones, you can definitely go with the Air Max 95s because they're comfortable. Okay. You could go with the Air Max 90s. You can do that too. But if you want to go for I think the ones you can get on the plane with those. You can meaning the Jordan ones. You can get on the plane with those. You can rock those with a pair of jeans. I've seen people, men rock them with suits. I've seen women wear those on the, if you're doing sideline reporting. Yeah. You can never go wrong with a pair of Air Force Ones. To me, the Jordan ones are the Air Force Ones of Jordans. Okay. But I personally I like the Jordan 11s and I like the Jordan 3s. Okay. The Jordan 3s were the first pair of Jordans that I ever owned. They were the sneakers that, Michael wore in when he won the slam dunk contest. They had the zebra print on the front. They're a comfortable shoe. You can play them. You can wear them if you're hooping on the court. You can wear them, comfortably, just like you can wear ones. If I'm going with a non-Jordan sneaker, I would go with a pair of Pumas. Okay. There are some Pumas that are comfortable. So I think there's a variety of different shoes you can wear. I appreciate it. Do you have a favorite pair of Jordans?
I don't wear them, so no. I know as much about Jordans as I don't even know.
So what's your go-to sneaker?
What do I have? I'm looking at my shoes right now. I have Keds.
Nothing wrong with Keds.
Is that good?
There's nothing wrong with Keds. I think it all goes according to your personal style. Like
I wear them. admittedly, I wear them just for errands. Usually other than that, I'm in flats or heels. It's like usually one of the other two. So this is why I asked someone like you, because you have it in your blood, right? The shoes
sure.
were ingrained in you. So I'm gonna have to try it out, and I'm gonna have to tweet you on Twitter when I finally get my pair.
I'm with it. No, man, I think it's all according to your style, but at the same time, we got you want somebody who can do both.
Exactly. Get you a woman who can do both. That's a good way to end the show. Yes, Brandon, it's been such a pleasure. Let people know where they can listen to your Scoopy Radio, where they can follow you. Give them all the details.
Well, I'm a senior writer at Heavy, so you can check out my work at heavy.com. You can also subscribe to the Scoop B Radio podcast, 2.1 million streams last year. We've had anybody from the voice.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So we've had anybody from the voice of Siri, Mark Cuban, DJ Khaled, Shaquille O'Neal, Charles Barkley, everybody in between. Subscribe on all streaming platforms. Follow me on Instagram, Scoop_B, Twitter, Scoop B. I mean, we're in there like swimwear.
I love it, Brandon. Thank you so much for joining me, Scoop B. We're going to have you back on the show. Please do not be a stranger, and keep up the great work.
Likewise, and we have to get you on Scoop B Radio as well.
I would be delighted, and definitely let me know next time you're on the East Coast and in my city of DC, and I will do the same for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks so much for joining me. Have a great one.
You too, man.